Hello? This chapter 19. We're on 19 already. Wow. It's called Dr. Nikidik's Famous Wishing Pills. The Tin, a woodman, was usually a peaceful man. If by that you mean sometimes he uses his axe, and sometimes he doesn't, I guess. What does that even mean? Like, are you peaceful because most of the time you're, like, half the day I'm asleep, so that's pretty peaceful, but, like, I don't know. But when occasion required, he could fight as fiercely as a Roman gladiator. Sorry, that got me off on the wrong foot. So when the jackdaws nearly knocked him down in the rush of wings and their sharp beaks and claws threatened to damage his brilliant plating, the woodman picked up his axe and made it whirl swiftly around his head. But although many were beaten off in this way, the birds were so numerous and so brave, were they brave? That they continued the attack as furiously as before. Or are they defending their house, their home? I don't know. Some of them pecked at the eyes of the gump, which hung over a nest in a helpless condition. But the gump's eyes were of glass and could not be injured. Okay, so no big deal. And in fact, why really bring it up? Unless, as I imagine, you're just trying to fill content. Others of the jackdaws rushed to the sawhorse, but the animal, being still upon his back, kicked so viciously with his wooden legs that he beat off many of the assailants, as did the woodman's axe. Finding themselves thus opposed, the birds fell upon the scarecrow's straw, which lay at the center of the nest, covering Tip and the wobblebug, and Jack Pumpkin's head, and began tearing it away and flying off with it, only to let it drop, straw by straw, into the great gulf beneath. Which does kind of beg the question, what is the scarecrow? Like, he's not his straw. Like, what is consciousness? That's deep. And I'm sure not what L. Frank Baum was thinking of. But it just gets you thinking. The scarecrow's head, noting with dismay this wanton destruction of his interior, cried to the Tin Woodman to save him, and good friends responded with a renewed energy. His axe fairly flashed among the jackdaws, and fortunately, the gump began wildly waving the two wings remaining on his left side of his body. The flutter of the great wings filled the jackdaws with terror, and when the gump, by its exertions, freed itself from the peg of the rock on which it hung, and sank flopping into the nest, the alarm of birds knew no bounds, and they fled screaming over the mountains. When the last foe had disappeared, Tip crawled from underneath the sofas and assisted the wobblebug to follow him. "We are saved," shouted the boy delightedly. "We are indeed," responded the educated insect, fairly hugging the stiff head of the gump in joy. "And we owe it all to the flopping of the thing and the good axe of the woodman." "If I am saved, get me out of here," called Jack, whose head was still beneath the sofas, and Tip managed to roll the pumpkin out and place it back on its neck again. He also set the sawhorse upright and said to it, "We owe you many thanks for the gallant fight you made." "And I really think we have escaped very nicely," remarked the Tin Woodman in a tone of pride. "Not so," exclaimed a hollow voice. They all turned in surprise to look at the scarecrow's head, which lay back in the nest. Yeah, that was a little pretentious, because it wasn't most of his body kind of dropped in down a cliff. And they're like, "Haha, we made it, we're all happy." But again, that seems kind of like real life, you know. People have celebrations, parties, and I'm here just as miserable as anyone. "I am completely ruined," declared the scarecrow as he noticed their astonishment. "That's real awkward." "For where is the straw that stuffs my body?" The awful question startled them all. I mean, could you just get some more straw? Does it have to be that same exact straw? What makes a person a person? The awful question startled them all. They gazed around the nest with horror, for not a vestige of straw remained. The jackdaws had stolen it to the last wisp, and flung it into the chasm that yawned for hundreds of feet beneath the nest. My poor friend," said the Tin Woodman, taking up the Scarecrow's head and caressing it tenderly. "Who could ever imagine that you would come to such an untimely end?" "I did it to save my friends," returned the head, "and I am glad that I perished in a noble and unselfish manner." "Why are you all so despondent?" inquired the Bogglebug. "The Scarecrow's clothing is still safe." "Yes," answered the Tin Woodman, "but our friend's clothes are useless without stuffing."
"Why not stuff him with money?"
asked Tip. "What money, Tip? What money have you suddenly come upon?" Money, they all cried in an amazed chorus.
To be sure,"
said the boy.
"in the bottom of the nest there are thousands of dollar bills."
"What? There are, and no one mentioned this."
$2 bills, and $5 bills, and tens.
Why does the amount matter? It's stuffing.
And 20s, and 50s.
Tip, you don't need to list the types of money that there are.
Well, there's enough to stuff a dozen scarecrows. Why not use the money?
The Tin Woodman began to turn over this rubbish with the handle of his axe. And do people not notice that, all their money's gone? And sure enough, what they had thought was just worthless papers were found to be all bills. But okay, if they're worthless papers, they can also stuff the Scarecrow. You're missing the point. I mean, sure, grab the 50s, I guess, because maybe you can use them later. But also, this is what, American dollars in the Land of Oz? I thought they didn't use money, as we established in that Christmas special. So, I don't know. But anyway, sure enough, they had thought it was worth the papers. They were found to be bills of various denominations. We know there were $2 bills, there were $5 bills, there were 10s, there were 20s, and there were 50s. We don't have to repeat ourselves. Which the mischievous jackdaws had been for years engaged in stealing from the villages and cities that they visited. There was an immense fortune lying in that inaccessible nest, and Tip's suggestion was, with the Scarecrow's consent, quickly acted upon. They selected all the newest and cleanest bills. The newest, they weren't okay, this one was printed in the year. What a waste of time. They selected the newest and cleanest bills and assorted them into various piles. The Scarecrow's left leg and boot were stuffed with $5 bills. His right leg was stuffed with $10 bills. His body so closely filled with 50s, 100s, and 1000s that he could scarcely button his jacket with comfort. Okay, we didn't mention the thousands, dollar bills. Why not just only do the thousands? I don't know. Also, if you'd like to contribute $1,000 to the Wonderful Lizard to help make more content, hey, that's a great idea. You are now, said the Bogglebug impressively when the task had been completed, the most valuable member of our party, and you are among faithful friends, and there is little danger of your being spent. Thank you, returned the Scarecrow gratefully. I feel like a new man, and although at first glance I might be mistaken for a safety deposit vault, I beg you to remember that my brains are still composed of the same old material, and these possessions have always made me a person to be depended upon in an emergency.
Well, the emergency is here,
observed Tip.
Unless your brains can help us out of it, we shall be compelled to pass the remainder of our lives in this nest.
How about the wishing pills? How about the wishing pills? Inquired the Scarecrow. That's what I said, taking the box from his jacket. Can't we use them to escape? Well, not unless we can count 17 by 2s, answered the Woodman. But our friend the Wobblebug claims to be highly educated, and well, it ought to be easy for him to figure out what can be done. This isn't a question of education, returned the insect. It is merely a question of mathematics. I've seen the professor work lots of sums on the blackboard, and he claimed anything could be done with X's and Y's and A's and such things by mixing them with plenty of pluses and minuses and equals and so forth. But he never said anything, as so far as I can remember, about counting up to an odd number of 17 by the even numbers of 2s. Stop, cried the Pumpkinhead. You're making my head ache. That's not the Pumpkinhead. Stop, cried the Pumpkinhead. You are making my head ache. And mine, added the Scarecrow. Your mathematics seem to me to be very much like a bottle of mixed pickles. How so? Even for this, that was random. The more you fish for what you want, the less chance you have of getting it. I'm certain that if the thing can be accomplished at all, it is a very simple matter.
Yes, said Tip. Oh, the Mumbai couldn't use X's and minuses, for she never went to school.
Why not start counting at half of 1? Asked the Sawhorse abruptly. And anyone can count up to 17 by 2s very easily. They looked at each other in surprise, for the Sawhorse was considered the most stupid of the entire party. Well, that's on them. Nevertheless, the creature is right, declared the Wobblebug, for twice 1/2 is 1. And if you mean to get it and if you mean to get 1, it is easy to count from 1 up to 17 by 2s. No, I mean, if you start at a half, then you go 1.5, 2.5, you'd get to 16.5, 17.5. What you're doing is you're doubling the number. That's not counting, that's multiplication. I wonder why I didn't think of that myself, said the Pumpkinhead. I don't, returned the Scarecrow. You are no wiser than the rest of us, are you? But let's make a wish at once. Who will swallow the first pill?
Well, suppose you do it, suggested Tip.
I can't, said the Scarecrow.
Why not? You've got a mouth, haven't you?
Yes, but my mouth is painted on, and there's no swallow connected to it, answered the Scarecrow. In fact, he continued, looking from one to the other critically, I believe the boy and the Wobblebug are the only ones in our party that are able to swallow. Observing the truth of this remark, Tip said,
Well, then I will undertake to make the first wish. Give me one of those silver pills.
This the Scarecrow tried to do, but his padded gloves were too clumsy to clutch such a small object, and he held the box out toward the boy while Tip selected one of the pills and swallowed it. Count, cried the Scarecrow.
1/2. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17.
Counted Tip. No, you start at -1, and then you add 2. And now wish, said the Tin Woodman anxiously. But just then the boy began to suffer such fearful pains that he became alarmed.
The pill has poisoned me, he gasped. Murder, fire,
And there he rolled up in the bottom of the nest, in such contortions that he frightened them all. What can we do for you? Speak, I beg, entreated the Tin Woodman, tears of sympathy running down his nickel cheeks.
I don't know, answered Tip. I wish I never swallowed the pill.
Then at once the pain stopped, and the boy rose to his feet again and found the Scarecrow looking in amazement at the end of the pepper box.
What happened?
Asked the boy, a little ashamed of his recent exhibition. Why, the 3 pills are in the box again, said the Scarecrow. Well, of course they are, the Wobblebug declared. Didn't Tip wish that he never swallowed one of them? Well, the wish came true, and he didn't swallow one of them. So, of course, all 3 are in the box.
Well, that may be, but the pill gave me a dreadful pain just the same, said the boy.
Well, that's impossible, declared the Wobblebug. If you never swallowed the pill cannot have given you pain. He's actually right on. And as your wish being granted proves you did not swallow the pill, it is also plain that you suffered no pain.
Well, then it was a splendid imitation of pain,
retorted Tip angrily.
I suppose you try the next pill yourself. We've wasted one wish already.
Oh, no, we haven't, protested the Scarecrow. Here there are still 3 pills in the box. Each pill is good for a wish.
Oh, now you're making my head ache, said Tip. I can't understand the thing at all. But I won't take another pill, I promise you.
And with this remark he retired sulkily to the back of the nest. Well, said the Wobblebug, it remains for me to say this in my most highly magnified and thoroughly educated manner, for I seem to be the only one willing to make a wish. Let me have one of those pills. He swallowed it without hesitation, and they all stood admiring his courage, while the insect counted 17 by 2s in the same way that Tip had done. And for some reason, perhaps because Wobblebugs have stronger stomachs than boys, the silver pellet caused it no pain whatever. I wish the Gump's broken wings mended, as good as new, said the Wobblebug in a slow, impressive voice. All turned to look at the thing, and so quickly had the wish been granted that the Gump lay before them in perfect repair, and as well able to fly through the air as it had been in the first place. Next, let's wish for some brains, because they should have kind of discussed what are we going to do with these wishes before the Wobblebug just blurted out. Now, I'm not saying he did a bad thing, fixing the wings, that's nice, but could we maybe have game planned a little and think ahead? Okay, what's our real goal? Well, we want to get to Glinda the Good Witch. Why do we want to get to Glinda? I forget, so they could help them with the army or something. Can't you just fix everything at once? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the pills work. I'm not confident that Glinda is going to help them whatever. It's worth a shot. And yeah, so our next chapter will be called The Scarecrow Appeals to Glinda the Good. So we'll get to meet Glinda again. Can reconnect with an old friend, I'd say. So hey, pretty good.